Welcome to our Rav Kook shiur for today, June 26, 2025, the 30th of Sivan, 5785. So nice to have you here today. We spoke yesterday about the idea that Rav Kook was talking about letters, right? And specifically how the soul is full of letters, and that within those letters is divine light that is constantly filling up those places, that the letters act as vessels in order to manifest God's infinite presence within a finite, limited world. That God's presence is shown differently depending on which vessel it's contained in and which letter it's contained in. We talked about how the letters were used according to Jewish tradition to create the world, and they are some of the underlying elements of our existence. So we'll keep going with what he's saying. He continues on the seventh ma'amar, the seventh teaching of Orot in the section Eretz Israel, the land of Israel. He says, Keshnigashim lemitzvah. When we approach a mitzvah, or the doing of a mitzvah, ha-mitzvah hi tamid malaya ziv chayim shel kol olamim. A mitzvah is constantly filled with the light of all of the spark of life of all worlds. Right? That mitzvah that we do, it's a manifest action that we do in this world, a very tactile thing, but that really is unique in that it really is filled with the light of godliness, this light that animates all of reality and all of it, anything that's alive. Malaya hi kol mitzvah otiot gedolot v'niflot. It's filled with these letters, each mitzvah, these great and wondrous letters. Mikol taryag mitzvot atal taluyot bechol mitzvah, right? That within every one of the 613 mitzvot is actually hinted at in every one, an individual one of the mitzvot, right? So every mitzvah we do actually is a prat, meaning it's a detail of one of the 613 mitzvot, right? It's one of all of these different mitzvot. But each mitzvah in itself sort of is a stand-in for all of the mitzvot. For example, right, wearing tzitzit or putting tzitzit on a four-cornered garment is a mitzvah, and it's one particular mitzvah, but it's a stand-in for all of the mitzvot, right? In that by looking at the tzitzit, we remember to do all of the mitzvot. That's the whole point of the tzitzit, is to remind us to do all of the mitzvot. And so therefore, it is almost like a klal for all of the mitzvot. Same thing with Shabbos, right? Shabbat, one mitzvah, right? To rest on the Sabbath day, well, two mitzvot, and remember the Sabbath day, guard the Sabbath day, at least Torah mitzvot. But within these detailed mitzvot, two out of the 613, really Shabbat is a stand-in for all of the Jewish tradition, how God rested on the seventh day, so too we should rest on the seventh day, that we're not slaves, all of the ideas behind it. So he's saying here that within every mitzvah we do is hints of all of the other mitzvot. He continues, Mikol chaye olamim shebasod ha'amunah. It's filled, each mitzvah is filled with the life of all worlds. And that is the secret of faith, right? Within each mitzvah is this divine energy of life that we attach ourselves to when we do that mitzvah. Ziv or Elohim Chaim, the spark of the living God, the light of the living God, or Chai Olamim, the light of the life of all worlds, the vitality of all worlds. Chai b'chol noam, behold kol mitzvah, that life is filled with the pleasantness and the glory of every mitzvah. Takef b'kishatenu l'mitzvah la'asota mitgad lot kol otiot achayut shemahutenu. So therefore, when we approach a mitzvah to do it, we actually expand. We actually grow. Mit gadlot kol otiot. right? We actually expand because what happens is the letters themselves within us expand, are sort of lit on fire. They are they gain some life from these mitzvot, and therefore it gives us vitality within our essence. Shebahu mahutenu. Anu mitgadlim umitgabrim umitatzmim beor chayim v'havya elyona, and through this we grow and we become stronger and we gain more strength with the light of life and all of the elevated existence. And that's the power of doing mitzvot, right? There are these little light packages from God that when we do it, right, we are filled with the light of all worlds on doing this concrete action. And I think that is what is so amazing about mitzvot when we do them, is that they are so in some ways so physical, like put on tefillin or put on tzitzit or light a Shabbat candle or do a chesed for somebody or observe Shabbat, something like this. Very physical things, shake the lulav, right? But within those very physical things, we're actually able to contain all of the life of all of the worlds and connect to God. So very, very important here, and I think really beautiful. So to just keep going. Mfor va'ashira osher kodesh olamim ba'or Torah v'ziv chochma, right? And glorified and enriched is this the holy riches of all the worlds. Hold on one second, everybody. And he continues on. B'or Torah v'ziv chochma, with the light of Torah and the spark of wisdom. No harot el aleinu otan haotiot shel mekorot Torah. Through those things shine upon us the lights of the origin of the, I'm sorry, not the lights, the letters of the origin of the Torah. Lumatam mitnasot otiot chayim. And from the Torah's letters, it lifts up and elevates the letters that we find within our life. Mleot ziv or panimi shibahu mahotenu, filling us up with the spark of inner light that is within our essence. The tasisa harat olamim mitava, and the world is basically, I think, created again every time we learn Torah, every time we do a mitzvah, by gaining and by connecting to this light of all worlds. Oz chedvat noam, the strength and the pleasure, the joy of the pleasure. Gvurat kodesh v'sason adanim mitaveh beruchenu panima, right? This pleasantness and this mighty holiness and joy and beauty appears and is made manifest within us from doing mitzvot. And within, throughout all of existence, is renewed the light of life. Olam muchra al yedenu zchut, and we actually merit the world through our actions of doing mitzvot and sort of lighting those, bringing that divine light into the letters of our own soul and our own essence. We actually make the world worth living, right? This is what he's saying here, right? That through that very action of bringing the light into the finite world, we make the physical reality actually worth it to God, right? And it actually seems to make sense for it to exist, and we therefore continue its existence. And he continues, Olam muchra al yedenu zchut, and the world is judged for good. Al kol panim mitosef or v'yosher ratzon v'sova tov panimi. And by doing so, we just add so much light into this world. And that's all from doing mitzvot and engaging with Torah and engaging with that light that is constantly connected to us. And he's finally going to get into Eretz Yisrael here. This is a long and very mystical, a very poetic first paragraph. So I'm sorry if I lost some people here. Rav Kook does tend to get a little poetic sometimes. But let's see what he says about Eretz Yisrael in this regard. Be'eretz Yisrael mitgadlot ha'otiot shel nishmatenu. In the land of Israel, those letters in our soul actually expand, right? So what Eretz Israel does in this interface, in this kind of structure that Rav Kook has created, what Rav Kook actually says here is that the vessels within ourselves for our ability to hold that spiritual light of God, right? That godliness, that life of all the worlds actually expands, right? So our capacity becomes bigger, right? And I think it's really important to tell us what Eretz Israel adds. It's not that the energy or the divinity is coming from Eretz Israel itself, but rather Eretz Israel increases our capacity to receive from above, right? Now, it's really important not to worship Eretz Israel, right? To worship a land, right? That would be called polytheism, right? That's not what we believe in as Jews, but rather Eretz Israel is built to expand the vessels of our soul so that we can actually receive the light that is constantly coming down and constantly being emanated from Hashem and God's self, right? Very important. Sham makshifot hen nahora, right? And there, because of that, we really experience this light. Yon kot chaim atzmi meziva chaim shel Knesset Israel. We draw down, we nurse from the unique light of our essence, from the spark of life of Knesset Israel. And Knesset Israel means the assembly of the Jewish people. It means the Jewish people in general gathered together. But it also has a Kabbalistic meaning of Shekhinah, which means the indwelling presence of God, usually pictured as a feminine presence. And this is the presence of God that actually dwells within the space of finite reality. Right? God is obviously infinite and beyond boundaries, but the very part of godliness that actually dwells within our world of finiteness and limits and temporariness, right? So that we can actually see things and there's differentiation, right? That presence of God that dwells within that small expression of godliness that actually dwells with us in this world that we can actually experience, that tip of the iceberg that we get to experience in this world is called the Shekhinah. It's called the Shekhinah. It's what the God's presence that dwells with us. And he's mentioning that here, and it's sort of hidden term here. Knesset Israel sort of hiddenly is also identified with the Shekhinah, or the indwelling presence of God, which of course is formed by the assembly of the Jewish people coming together and being in community and doing mitzvot. Right? That's what enables the divine presence to actually dwell within the world in a recognizable way that we can actually experience. Mushba'at hen mesod yitziratam hamakorit b'derech yishara, right? They're influenced by the secret of their own creation from their origin point in a straight way. Avira de Eretz Yisrael mamsi et agadol, hara'anan shel otiot achayim halalu, right? The air of Eretz Yisrael, the environment of Eretz Yisrael brings into fruition the greatness, the true greatness and the joy of the letters of these letters of life. Beziv tifara, in the spark of their beauty, biyididut ne'ima, b'gevurat ra'am, in the beauty of their pleasantness and intimacy, and in the power of their thunder that shines upon us and fills us up with holy illumination from God, as it is said in Isaiah, Kol ha'katuv l'chaim b'Yerushalayim. Right? Everything is written for life in Jerusalem. This is a verse out of Isaiah 4:3. And I think the way he's seeing this here is that everything that's connected to Yerushalayim, that's connected to Eretz Israel, is full of life. And that's how we receive the light of the world in our world, is by way of Jerusalem, by the way of it expanding our capacity to receive the light of holiness and expanding our souls to just receive more from the divine, which is important. We'll finish this teaching tomorrow. I'm sorry, it's a relatively long and very mystical teaching. So I hope you're still following along. But if you have any questions, please feel free to message me, email me anytime, Rabbi Marcus Rubenstein at templeofaaron.org. Until tomorrow, everybody, thank you so much, and an early Shabbat Shalom to you.